Hey guys, welcome to another ride in the struggle bus, where every wheel is any triangle. On today's bus ride, we are playing against a 9K on OGS, and it's a pretty tame game, but we go a lot into the decisions about when to expand your territory versus when to reduce theirs, and there are some interesting decisions that need to be made this game. Anyway, as per always, I'd like to thank our opponent for playing us today. I'd like to thank you guys for watching these videos, and I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting this channel. And so with that out of the way, let's get into the game. Okay, let's go. We are black against a 9K on OGS. We will be following our rules. We're going to do a 4-4 and a 3-4 facing. We'll go after the open corners first, and then we will approach one of his corners. I like splitting up the sides that they play the corners on, so we're just going to approach the lower stone from this side. Could have approached from this side, could have done the 3-3, could have approached at the top. All those choices are fine. And so he does a high two-space jump back there. We're gonna continue to do our normal slide. I think this is fine. And then when he plays here, we will play the simple variation and just come back and make our base here. And this kind of gets a little bit on the side. With him playing a little higher here as opposed to f3, there's probably going to be a weakness that we can look at later. He's approaching our corner. We are going to respond to this. And with him having a fourth line stone here, it feels a little awkward to play this high because he could come and play this. So we're just going to do a two-space extension here, which isn't a normal response. This isn't one that I actually typically do. But it feels reasonable here. And then he jumps back. I'm actually going to kick now. And the reason is it's going to secure this corner. And if he extends up, it leaves him a little over-concentrated. Not much, but if he has a stone at Q5, he'd probably rather this stone be at Q9. And if he ignores, then we can play one of the two Hanes. And I think we're going to play this to threaten to cut under. It is a second line move. It's a little early for it, but it undercuts what he has done here. And now we can play away. So he has approached our corner, and so we are just going to respond to this. We're going to back off. And he's going to jump here. So it's looking like he's trying to get a pretty good side here. But we should be able to invade and or reduce this, especially with the S5 stone here. But there is one more corner that we can go after. And here we're just going to play 3-3. Again, could have approached from either side. 3-3 just felt like the way to go with this one. And so he extends that way. So we will push. He's extending one more time. We can push or we can jump. I'm going to push one time, and then he plays away. But now he should have played c14. This Hane is pretty important because now we get to play the Hane at the head of 3, and this is a pretty big move, and so I will just play it right now. Okay, so he does Hane us, and what's nice about the Hane at the head of 2 and or 3 is we can consider the double Hane. In this situation, I don't think we'll be able to get away with it as much, and that's a little beyond what I want to do with basics here. So we're just going to extend because getting fourth line territory is pretty good, and we can extend one more time. And while we're getting all this, White's getting something too, right? White's getting this nice wall that's facing his stone at K16, but this is going to be pretty easy to reduce and or invade, and this is pretty much completely sealed at this point in time. So he then decides to come back and try to solidify this, and that seems like a perfectly reasonable play here. And so at this point, we've kind of, all four corners have kind of been spoken for. A lot of the sides have been spoken for, and so now we want to look at the big areas on this board and where the big potential is. We've got one more corner that isn't fully taken care of yet. We've got this kind of open area on the side here, then obviously this large territory White's looking to get on the top left, and then the right side. I think we want to take this point because it's a big mutual point. You know, it encloses more of the corner and also pressures this side a little bit more. So this is what we're going to play because this corner was still a little open, and we still are early enough in the game where we want to be focusing on corners before the sides, before the center. And he plays probably the next big move on this board. Hey guys, it's that time again where you tell me where you would play right here. So this game's been pretty tame so far, and you can clearly see the territories that each player is looking to expand upon or reduce. And so it's our turn. We clearly have Sente. Where are we going to play here? Should we be looking at growing one of our territories? Should we be looking at reducing one of our opponent's territories? Where would you play here? Which area would you look at growing or reducing? Anyway, let me know where you guys would play here, because I'm curious, because I feel like there are a few options on this board, and I want to know which one you would take and what your plan would be. So let me know in the comments. Anyway, let's get back to the game. So at this point, we want to be looking at moves that are either going to increase our potential and or territory or reduce his. And the two big areas that I want to target are this right side and this top. And then obviously we can look at the bottom as well. All three can be looked at, but I think the top is probably the most important of them. And so I'm going to play K18 here with a fourth line stone. We can play on the second line and really get in there. And so I'm going to play here, looking to connect back to the 017 stone while trying to pressure this a little bit. So we're going to push in and see what he does. So he blocks. We're just going to take this exchange because it threatens to Atari this and then capture the H18 stone. And then when he connects, we're just going to connect back, and I think this is probably the cleanest way to do it. And so all this did is it reduced his potential here, and it grew our territory in the corner. So let's look at the next big area. We've got the right side, and we've got this bottom. And so I'm not sure which of these would be easier to go after, but I think probably the right side because we've got stones on either side. And this looks like a tough area to invade. So let's go over some strategies that we can do to invade an area like this. One of the things that I like to consider is, especially when they've got a fourth line stone, if they've got a stone that's in the center that kind of holds everything together, often attaching to this stone is a good option. And so we can look at attaching here, here, or here. We can look at all three of these attachments. I'm just going to attach underneath. And the goal here is to basically just create chaos here. Create lots of cuts, lots of opportunities to Atari, and see if we can get something there. We can also look at extending and trying to connect up with that stone here. So let's try this. This is the easier of the two methods. We're just going to extend here. And then obviously if he blocks and lets us come out, then we will go that way. So we are going, he's blocked our connection to this stone. So we are going to play here, which threatens to cut here. And now we can play this, which looks to separate these two stones, because he did kind of go a little backwards here. So we will play here and see how he responds to this. And so he is blocking us. And I think this Atari is probably the best way to go, because when we Atari this way, either he connects and lets us connect, or he does this and lets us capture. And we get this in Sente. And so I think he's made a mistake here because we've got this cut and we've got this Hane. For now, though, I think we can leave this. This might not look that successful of an invasion, but we were able to grow our corner considerably. And there's still a lot of Aji here. I actually think that this move just works. But I want to look at reducing his next large area. And so in this case, we're not actually going to be looking at reducing the area. We're going to be looking at reducing the potential while growing ours. Because if he gets a stone around E6, then it kind of stops our potential and grows his. But we can play a move like this, and we can actually go out one further. And this will limit his potential while growing ours. So that is all we are doing here, is looking for the big areas and going after them. So he did notice that cut, right? You need to protect your cuts. That's one of the rules that we have. He did notice that he had a cut there. And so now what I want to do is I'm just going to push here once. This is fairly small. This is endgame, but it does feel like it is Sente. So we were able to get that. And now we played this. He didn't respond to it. So let's take this turn here. Again, we're just looking to stop his potential from growing while growing our potential. So that looks like it's going to be the theme of this game. This is a pretty easy Hane to make. He's going to be real careful because he's got a multitude of cuts here. So he needs to be careful of those. We're going to play another large endgame move. We're going to play C18, which threatens to come in here. And now I think we can come back and push here. We want to make sure that we don't get behind this stone, because as we're doing this, we're growing our territory. He's growing his as well, but ours is growing at a little bit of a faster clip, and we are going to Hane here. We do have to be a little careful at this point in time, though, because now he's playing moves that really only get him territory, and we're playing moves that are so wide and so loose that he's going to be able to get in somewhat easily. So there's some potential around here that we could potentially deal with, but there's also some stuff going on here. So I'm actually going to play B3. It's another endgame move, but this is a pretty large one. It's probably like a 10-point move, as bizarre as that seems. Okay, so he's turned. We will descend. So we're going to get a really large left side here, and he's going to try to get a big center here. But centers are pretty tough to hold. He also didn't respond to this, and we can do something similar here, where he's got a 4th line stone in the center, and we can attach to it. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to attach to this just like we did here, and this should turn into a pretty successful reduction for us. So we can do the same thing here and just push and see where this goes. And we will push and we will Hane. And if he Hanes, then we'd be able to capture the stone. And so now we're just going to push, and we're going to connect up with N3, which turns out to be quite good in this situation. He is angling to get the center, but it's not going to be enough because we're getting all the corners and some pretty large sides. Need to be careful here because we've got this cut and this cut. So we will just protect here. I protected this side because now we can play this. So here we can look at just blocking. We can also look at coming in a little bit, but I think just blocking is fine. And now we need to do what we can to reduce this area. So we're going to push to create this cut. And so I wanted to push to get this cut because there's a weakness here for white, because he's got a cut here and he's got a cut here, and we can exploit those, especially since we got this is, with R4 and N4, it's like we've got the Hane at the head of 3 here, and we know that that's a weakness, right? So we know that there's a lot that we can do with these cuts, and so we are going to show that now. We can play this cut, which threatens to kill these 3 stones. So he plays here. So unfortunately, he did not protect his cuts, and so we have this Atari now into this Atari. And so now I think he should be able to see that he can't connect here because he'll lose all of his stones. So I suspect he will play K4, or he did this. I think just capturing is easy enough, and that puts these 2 stones in Atari. And so he's got to be careful with this group as well. I will gladly capture these 2 stones because it has the follow-up of this cut. And so I will take these stones. And he now needs to protect this cut. And I think that does a fine enough job of protecting that cut. There's also a cut here. I think we're just going to poke at it by playing here. I think the cut probably worked, but this should be good enough. And then we are going to play this to try to get all 4 corners, because the corners are where all the points are. And he is resisting that. He is going to play this move, and he's looking to cut here. The problem is this is my strength. Black is fairly strong here, so I don't think he can get away with playing a move this deep. So we're just going to block him from running out to his friends, and he does take the cut. But all we need to do is protect this stone. And so we're just going to play here. And we're still connected. This diagonal is connected. And we will play here and remain connected as well. So I don't think he's going to be able to get this to work. So he attaches. We have to block here. But this may open up some Aji. If he looks at this cross cut or looks at c5. So there might be some options for him here. I'm just going to play this Atari, and I think we need to protect our cuts. Looking at this, we have a lot of outside liberties, and he does not have many liberties here. And so now he's going a little hectic on us. This most assuredly is not going to work. And so we're just going to make sure that the stone stays connected to our group while also taking a liberty away from his stones, because liberties are important. And we will just play this Hane. And all we need to do is make sure that he doesn't get 2 eyes here. And I think that's going to be fairly difficult to do. So we are going to take this Atari, and then we will just block him here. And I don't think he has enough room to get 2 eyes here. This, unfortunately, is not going to work because this cut, we get to connect with an Atari. So we're just going to capture this stone. Black was too strong in this area. So we will, he's threatening to cut, so we will connect. That when he connects, it'll come with an Atari, but then we can connect and we are fine. Okay, so he comes back to this corner. We will take this Atari. And now we are pretty much in endgame. I think we are up by a fair amount on this one. So let's look at some big endgame moves. I think this is probably our first big endgame move. Because this will come in Sente. And when you're playing endgame, you want to find the moves that are going to come in Sente. And so another Sente move, even though it's only 1 point, is this right here. And then similar to this move, we have this, which will come in Sente as well. And so we are going to go get all the Sente moves that we can. At this point, there's really not much we can do. We can't really get in here. There's no way we're going to live. But we can look at trying to at least push in a little bit. And so we will play here, and then here, and then here. And obviously we will block them. And at this point in time, we are really truly in endgame, and we're just gonna be winding down. So I will see you guys at the end of this game. Okay, so here we are at the end of the game. And it was actually fairly close. White got a very large center, which isn't too typical of our games. But the left side and the two large corners were enough to get us there, but we really we really did not win by that much. It was a strong game by our friend. So anyway, let's take a look at the review and see where our friend could have played better. Okay, here we are in the review, and we're mostly just going to be focusing on White's moves. The beginning was all fine. This is a little wide, but we know that, but it's fun to experiment with moves like this. Obviously, we're more used to either, just sliding back or playing the kick, but if you want to play around with this, this is fine. And then he approaches our corner, seems reasonable, jumps back, also seems reasonable. Here, I don't dislike the Tanuki. This is fine. R4 is a pretty forceful move, but you don't need to respond to it. So this is fine. We did follow up. I think at this point, I might just leave this stone alone. If you are unwilling to answer this and Black wants to invest more into it, then maybe you can challenge Black and say, hey, is it really worth capturing just that one stone? So I think he could have stayed consistent and played away, but responding is fine. None of these seem like big mistakes to me. This seems a little slow just because there's a lot of stones on this right side right now. But again, not a big mistake. I think White may have done a little better just to come into the corner, but this still seems fine. Still seems fine. All of this seems fine. I'd say this is probably the first big mistake of the game, just because this Hane is very painful. Normally, White just takes this exchange and then will Tanuki. And if Black wants to play this later, that's fine. This is a variation that I'm used to seeing. But playing this without securing this first, this is a big loss for White locally. And so we're able to get a pretty large area. But White gets a pretty large area too. White's still in fine enough shape here. Black does have a lot of secured points on this board, though, especially when we take this corner. So White does need to be mindful of that. So he goes to look to secure some more points here. And so now we go in reduction mode, and yeah, this is pretty much all White can do with this is shore that up, and we do this. And this seems, I don't know, I'm not sure about that one. I think this is probably the larger area to care about right now. White's undercut here on both sides, so it's going to be tougher to hold on to this. White's group is strong here and is closer to this group. So this group is in less trouble than this group is. Not that this group is in trouble, but we could, I think, as White, this would probably be the better way to press down, because there's really nothing he can do to reduce this. It's just too strong at this point in time. But there's still a lot of potential on this left side. So I think this probably would have been a bigger area to go. We decided to play here. This is a tough move to answer. I'm not going to go into all the variations because this could have gone any number of ways. This is one of the responses that that I was considering White could do. We could look at the cross cut. We could look at the Hane ourselves, or the push. What I was looking at is if he extended and let this happen, then we connect up. This seems like the wrong direction to me. I think this is a little problematic. I think White should have probably just let us connect in Gote while White gets good influence here, and then can look at again playing a move like e6, which is really threatening to get a large area here and potentially a really large center. This doesn't look bad for White. Playing here, I think it's just the wrong direction. I think White really needed to shift his focus into the center now. While the sides and corners are more important than the center, at a certain point in time, the center does become important, and this is probably the stage of the game where it's going to start becoming important. And letting us go that way seems to be against White's best interest. And here, this likely ends up getting these two stones. But so we're able to play here. But as I mentioned in the game, I didn't play it, but we could have started with this. Or I guess realistically, we could have started with this and then played this Hane. And I think this ends up capturing these three stones. Black or White could do this and White could do this and trade here. But this also seems like a really big success for black. It all seems good, and so I didn't like him leaving this here. And this was all predicated in S13. I think S13 was the mistake. But we played away, took the other big point. He noticed there was this cut, and he fixed immediately. And so from here on out, we just, you guys saw in the game, we just went and grew our potential while reducing his, and were able to do it a little more efficiently than he did, which is like the unexciting part of Go, right? Like, we want fighting, but sometimes the games come down to, can you do things more efficiently than your opponent? And that's where the rest of this game went. And so I'm not gonna focus too much more on that because, like I said, a lot of the jockeying position is pretty much already done in this game. Though there was this fun invasion here. Again, it's important to learn some tools for invasions because it's easy to see these 4 white stones as being very difficult to invade. But if you were white here, would you feel confident answering this move correctly? Because this is also a difficult move to answer because we've got the crosscuts and the hanes on either side. So when white plays here, we can look at the crosscut, which if white goes here, now all of a sudden black gets in this way and these 2 stones look like they're dead. And if white goes this way, then we can potentially do this, which isolates this stone, right? So that's tough. And as you saw in the game, we can just go this way and connect out. And if he had tried something similar, as the other way with blocking here, like we get out very easily. So as you can see, this is why normally we see this stone at f3, because this stone doesn't actually secure the side very well. So anyway, that's where we're going to leave this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. And thank you guys for coming out for another ride in the Strugglebus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.